Good morning, everybody, and here we are with another round of coffee and questions. And today's topic, we'll talk about utility trailer restoration. Now, I'm going to do this in different parts. This is kind of a long project. I look around a lot of times for utility trailers that I can pick up fairly cheaply, and then I can fix up, and then I can turn around and resell them, flip them. Sometimes you can make really good money doing this, but part of it depends that you bought it correctly to begin with and you knew what your expenses were. And I'm going to change the picture here in a minute, and I'm going to take you step by step, and we're going to go through it. I thought it would be a good video, and we can talk about tools, techniques, and things like that that you can do at home with basic tools. I'm hoping that you got a welder and you got some basic hand tools and stuff, and we'll talk about each step of this as we go. And like I said, I'll do it in parts. I'm going to go ahead and change the picture, and I'll show you when I went out and I took a look at the trailer, what it looked like and what I was thinking, while I was looking at it, so that you don't make any of the mistakes that I've made in the past. I have made errors when I bought these things, and once I was lucky to have even broke even by the time I was done. So let me go ahead and change the picture and we will get started. Okay, here's a picture of the trailer I went out to take a look at. It was out at a ranch, as you can tell. And I first walked around this thing, and the lady was wanting like almost close to $1,000, for the trailer. And I took a close look at this, and I started to back away from it. And she's like, well, I need to get rid of this. I mean, can you make me a reasonable offer? And I said, well, let me take a look at it and let me see what I think that it all needs, because it had been sitting for about 6 years, she said, in a storage area, and nobody had used it. And it just had collected a lot of damage, over the time, being used by whoever, the ranch hands or whoever were using it. So I took a walk around it and I looked at it, and some of the things that I noticed, and I'll show you pictures here in a minute, I'll flip through them. The first thing I noticed is, well, the tires are in good shape, the rims are in decent shape, there's no spare tire, so I would want one, especially if I was going to refurbish this. You don't need it to flip it, but, I thought it would be a good addition. The lights on it all the way around were so faded and so scratched up that, I knew that I needed to replace those. Now, the hinge mechanism on that drop gate in the back, it was frozen, it wouldn't work, and it had shifted to the right. So it wasn't lining up, the pinholes or whatever that you anchor, to the trailer with. I'll show you a close-up of that in a minute so you know what I'm talking about. And the jack in the front, it was all flared at the bottom. It wouldn't even go up and down, without a lot of force. And I thought, wow, so this thing needs some work. And I took a look at the toolbox on there, and you could see where they jackknifed turning it on both sides, and they dented the box in. And I'm sitting there thinking, well, this thing needs a lot of work. Now, the one plus on it was it has all diamond plate and not wood for flooring, and it had a lot of surface rust. So it wasn't rusted through or rusted bad, but it had a lot of surface rust, and I knew that I would want to end up redoing the decking on this. I took a look at the fenders. They were in good shape, and on the inside where you see the fenders are, the metal had been buckled in a couple of spots, and I thought, well, I can get in there with, a hammer and, some auto body tools, and I can pound this back. So I knew that I could fix, the dents and stuff. The railing and everything was in great shape. Underneath of it was in great shape. You could tell it's not rusted or anything like that. And I thought, okay, so I knew that this was going to require, quite a bit of work and buying stuff and so forth. So I started thinking, what do I want to offer her? And she goes, what if you just give me 600? And I said, well, what if I give you 5? And so she's like, you know what, just take it for the 5. So I got lucky. That she was able, originally she wanted like 950 or something for that, and she knew that that was too high. I wasn't going to offer anything ridiculously low. She wouldn't take it, and I was afraid somebody else would come along and buy it, so I gave her the 500, and I went ahead and I took it home. So let me show you the other pictures here, and then we will start the restoration of this thing. Okay, here's a shot of the back of this thing, and you can see all along the bottom where it's rusted up real bad. But again, this is all surface rust. It wasn't anything that had been rusted through. And you can see the pins over here on, especially on the far right near the tail light. This thing was just, they had to bend the pins in order to make it work, because this whole gate had shifted to the right. Okay, over here on the left is the only manufacturer's, information I could find on this trailer, and it's right in front of the jack in the front. And this is all that was on there, and I thought, okay, so this is going to be a decent trailer in terms of being able to hold weight. It's not anything, super strong, but at 5,000 pounds, okay, I can live with that. That's a good trailer. So now take a look over here on the right. You'll see the sides of this toolbox are dented in on both sides. And you'll see the jack in the front. I think it's Fulton or one of these inexpensive cheap ones. So I wasn't so worried about replacing that because it was damaged anyway. You know, the handle's missing off of it. It wouldn't go up and down, you know, without a lot of force. And the whole bottom, that you can't see it in the picture, but the whole bottom was flared and it was messed up. So let me tear these down. Let me show you some other pictures. We'll have a quick discussion before we get into the restoration. Okay, so the first headache in this was getting it home. And I have a truck and I've got the ball on it. And it wasn't that bad because you could actually, with two guys, pick up the whole tongue of this, which is kind of what we did because we couldn't get the jack to work correctly. I set it on there. The safety chains are still good. You know, I hooked up the lighting. Of course, you know, the running lights wouldn't work and one of the tail lights was out, and I took the chance. I just took the back roads and I took it home slowly, and I had somebody follow me because remember, this thing had been sitting for 6 to 8 years and, you know, not really being used. What they did is they just used it as like a storage bin and threw stuff in there until I went out there to get it, and of course cleaned it out, took the pictures. But you'll see in this picture, it's hard to see, but that fender well on the left, on the inside, you can see where the sheet metal is buckled, where they had hit the side of it there with something. And you can see all of the rust. It's all surface rust on that diamond plate. So these are all things that, you know, once I got it home, I had to sit and start thinking about, you know, cost efficiency in fixing this thing up, especially if I'm going to turn around and flip it. And then I had to look at all the damage. You'll see that box over here. You can barely see it on the right. You can see how it's caved in where they jackknifed it. It's the same thing over on the left. Let me change the picture. We'll get to the next picture here. Okay, so this picture showing you, you know, like I said, in the driveway, you can see the running light on the one side just dangling there by the wire. It wasn't working anyway, and you can see how that box is bent real bad up there. And so I knew I could get most of that dent out. I wasn't sure if I could get 100% of it, but I knew I could get most of it out. And like I said, the rest of this is just a matter of sanding and wiping it with acetone and prepping it for paint. Because the surface rust wouldn't be that hard to get off. I would use a 4.5-inch angle grinder and, you know, my sanding flap wheels, and I could go over anything that was real bad and touch it up by hand and get it ready for painting. So let me change the picture and we'll keep going. Now, this is kind of another close-up actually of the back of that tailgate. Now, like I said, it had shifted, but you could see the pin over here on the far right. I took a little bit better picture. This whole area in here is what I knew was going to need work. I was going to have to either heat those pins up that caused the trailer to go up and down, you know, the hinges of those pins, and I would have to derust them, you know, oil them up, and I would have to heat and bang this thing from, you know, the right to the left to recenter and realign those pins. Right now the pins are in there, but they are like a piece of rebar that was bent in order just to make the pin work. But like I said, you want to, you know, re-straighten this thing out and get it done correctly. Okay, so here we are back at the other picture of it sitting in the driveway, like I was saying. So my first thought is, okay, what am I going to do? Well, I'm going to prep this whole thing for painting. We agreed there. I knew that I was going to derust that diamond plate, and I would put a coating of something over the top of it so that, you know, a protective coating, and I knew that I would get the dents out, you know, in that toolbox. I would have to replace the jack in the front. I would have to fix the wiring. I would need a new lighting kit, and then I would want a spare tire, and I would want a spare tire mounting bracket, and, you know, I would do things like that to it. So it didn't seem like it was going to be overall costly, and so we'll talk about the costs as we go through. But this is the project. This was part one. Part one pretty much showing you what I'm looking at, what I'm thinking about, what I bought it for, and then, you know, like I said, I mean, I got it home. Okay, so before I end this first part, let me recap what I was talking about, what I was thinking. The first part of it's in the negotiation, because the cheaper I can get the trailer, the more room I have to fix it up correctly the way that I want, and that I know that I can resell it and make money. So in this case, the 500 I thought was a fair deal because I knew that I was going to be putting money into it. The second little treat here is the lock on the front. It was locked. Nobody had a key. Nobody knew it was even in the box, and I had no way of getting into it, but I thought, I'm not worried about it. You know, I'll cut the lock off once I get it home and, you know, clean it out and fix it from there. So I knew that that had to be done. Like I said, the trailer jack in the front had to be replaced. The lights were all faded out. They didn't work, so I knew that I'd have to get a new trailer light kit. The tongue lock in the front was sticking real bad, but I knew that was just a matter of oiling it and playing around with it. And even if I had to replace it, it's an inexpensive part, but I could probably get this one working, and it was still in good shape. It just wasn't wanting to work the way that it should. I had to fix the dents on both sides of the box where they had jackknifed it. I knew that. So I knew also that I would have to, de-rust this diamond plate, and I would have to put something over the top of it. And I knew I would have to spend a lot of, not a lot of time, but enough time de-rusting everything, even with that angle grinder, and prepping it for paint. And I would need acetone, because that's what I always wipe everything down with, acetone, before I paint it. These things were inexpensive and just some labor. I knew what bugged me the most is I knew that I would have to work on that tailgate and somehow reshift it, realign things, and get it working correctly again. So I knew that was going to require some work, but I knew that I had all of the tools at home to do it with. I mean, I've got, a welder, I've got hand tools, so I knew that I could fix it. I just had to figure out how to do it. I knew that the tires are in decent shape, but they did show signs of light cracking, but it wasn't too bad. And like I said, it needed a spare tire and it needed a mounting bracket. The fenders were in good shape, except for the one over here on the left on the inside. That sheet metal had buckled. They had hit it with something, but I knew if I removed those tires over here on the left, I could probably get to it with, auto body tools, with a clamp, and suck it back up in there. I could tack weld it, and I could pound the steel, the sheet metal back out and make it look straight again. So all of these things are what's running through my head when I bought it, but I knew that this is more labor than it is anything, and that the cost of materials should not be too bad for me. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and wrap this video up. This is the purchase. These are the things that I was thinking, that I was looking at. And in part 2, we'll start going piece by piece of what I did and how I went through the restoration of this. And if you're interested, keep following me. It's kind of an interesting project. I'll talk about the tools and the materials that I used and what I did. And, if you're doing the same thing and you run across a good deal, these may give you some good tips. So I'm the Home Handyman. I hope you click subscribe. I hope you keep following me, and I'll see you in part 2 if this is a project that interests you. Thank you very much for watching. I'll talk to you in a sec. Bye-bye.